Today's take action tip is one of the most overlooked things in business. A lot of business owners fail to properly identify and model their ideal client. This process is so important. It's a big mistake that people make trying to be everything to everyone. You want to be something to someone, and that's your ideal client. Hope you enjoy it.
What I really needed was to recreate myself, which means to bring something new into the world that has never existed before.
Okay, you're going to learn the ultimate lesson that I paid the ultimate price to give to you now. This is a take action tip on creating your ideal client, and to go through a very thoughtful exercise on making sure that what you do is what you want. And let me tell you a quick story here. So over the 25 years I was in financial services, I learned to do a lot of things because I was a solopreneur. I worked for a company called Prudential, and I went independent for a little while. And when you become independent, you start to learn all of the things that you need to do that big companies usually do for you. So you acquire a lot of skills. And then I kind of migrated back to the big company world and started growing my organization. And I would wander around the marketplace, Steve, and I would talk to people, and I would just kind of fish for stories and fish for problems. That's called fishing from the mouth. If you ask somebody what's going on, they're typically going to tell you. So I came up with a lot of problems, and they had many of the problems that I had, but they didn't know how to solve them, but I did. So I'd recruit them to my world, and I would build a plan to help solve their problem. And that worked just fine early on. It didn't work so well later, because as I created more relationships that way, I started to be in a world where I had a lot of fires always going, and I had to put the fires out. And the big mistake I made was that I should have been looking for people with a very specific problem and have a very specific solution to that, instead of looking for people that have a problem. Because once you learn how to sell, finding someone that has a problem is not going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of problems out there, right? You got problems, don't you?
Yeah, got tons.
Everybody's got problems. So if you're out there looking for problems and you're building solutions a la carte, you're going to go crazy. And roll the clocks up 25 years later, I have relationships with directly and indirectly with almost 500, 600 people, 150 people full time, and it was unmanageable. So this exercise is about creating your ideal relationship and working backwards from solving that ideal person's very specific problem with a very specific solution. And that's what this episode is going to be about. I hope you enjoy it. This one isn't very sexy, but man, is it important, right? Did you ever try to end up doing something, and then once you get there, you're like, holy shit, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, definitely. I do a lot with training, and a lot of times I like to all aspects of training, but you have to find which piece that I'm best at. So there's jump training, right, but there's nutrition, there's mindset, there's mobility, there's a tons of different things, and you want to be an expert at one. It's kind of like reverse engineer it.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is where we're going to reverse engineer relationships, because what happened is I had so much stress that contributed in a very large scale to my physical demise. And so this exercise, after finding your purpose, is who do you want to help in the world, and that comes down to the type of people you enjoy the most, because everything leaves clues. All of your life is a giant manufactured assembly of results of things you've done. Some are fun, some are not so fun. So you want to be aware of what you like to do and who you'd like to do that with, because if you have no bad clients, you have no bad days. But if you have a lot of people that have problems, and you recruit them to your world, and you build a la carte solutions for their problems, you're going to have a business that has no systems and a lot of chaos. So let's work backwards from that. And I think I told you when I was, right after I got sick, I went to Africa. And when I went to Africa, I wanted to see the animals. You get this news that you're going to be probably dead. So I wanted to go to Africa. I went with my best friend. We went to Zimbabwe. We flew into Johannesburg, flew over to Victoria Falls, and took a jeep into the jungle. And in the jungle, we had this really luxurious tour guide. And I said, man, he goes, what do you want to see? I said, well, I want to see the lions. I always wanted to see the lions hunt. And he said, well, he says, lions aren't as easy to find as you would think. They don't run around they don't run around like a wild animal. They kind of bed down all day. Lions are like the ultimate observationalists. They just sit there and kind of watch and watch and watch. So they look at the herd. And I want you to think of your business like this, all right? If you're in business, you want to look at your community, your local community first as the herd. And what a lion will do is it'll study that herd forensically. It'll just continue to watch very patiently, very deliberately. It'll do its research. It'll identify a weak spot in the herd. And when the weak spot is identified, the lion will pounce, and it'll separate the many from the few from the many. They try to separate it down to something that they can conquer. So you don't want the whole market. You want a very specific part of the market. And, I think it's 3%. 3% of the market. So you can start to study the weaknesses and really identify what you can do for them. So you have to go through the process of doing the research and doing the forensic study of a market. And a lot of people don't do this. Like they hang a shingle and they hang a sign and they take all comers. And some of that you have to do, but I could argue with a lot of people that is the recipe for failure and chaos. So great clients bring you joy. There's some people that I just love to work with, and there's some people that were on my calendar in the morning. I'd almost like not want to go into work. They're like the toxic people, always pissing and moaning about something. And when you work with the same person over and over and over again, you get to be very, very good at specializing. Like think about the doctor, right? If you had a bad knee, you're not going to the general practitioner. You want to go to a sports doctor. You jump and you're a performer. So you want to have the best doctor looking at it. So once you solve a very specific problem, you have an opportunity to become known for something. You want to become known for something. And I think, I go eat at the restaurants, right? What do I ask the restaurant every single time I sit down?
What are you known for here?
Yeah, because if they're known for something, the waiter will know. And if you don't know anything about that restaurant, you can, you want them to brag about what their best move is. What's their best dinner, their best plate. So that's the basis of the ideal client, and it's going to take research and thought and what's called white space. Because right now we don't have a lot of white space in our lives. You know what white space is? It's a copywriting term. White space means if you look at a blank newspaper, remember the days when there was a newspaper, and if their very effective ads would not have a lot of words in them. The very effective ads would have like a catchy 1 or 2 word statement and a lot of white space around it, so you can really focus in on what that is and then become curious and read the subcopy. So in life, we have no white space. We have no, open space where our brains don't have to process something. There's a lot of clutter, particularly with social media and a lot of the digital distractions.
One interesting thing that you mentioned to me about this ideal client is once you specialize and you kind of choose something that I thought was really interesting is that you have to kind of say no to a lot of business. And I know, like for myself, it's like I want to say yes to everybody. You want to make money. You want to accept and get better and keep helping more people, but you have to say no, which is an interesting point.
Oh, of course. Once you have the ideal client, you have to solve their problems first so you can take care of yourself, because it's kind of like being in the airplane when they say put your mask on first before helping others.
Yeah.
You can't do anything for anybody if you don't have the resources to build a team and an organization. So the best thing you can do is target your most profitable niche and the most effective niche that you can perform in. And you will start to generate revenue. Because when you're a kid, right, I equate this to a house party. My brother played for the Toronto Blue Jays when we were in high school. When I was a senior, my mom and dad would drive up to St. Catharines, Canada, to see him. So it was like a 10-hour drive each way. So they were gone for like 3 days. They'd leave on Thursday. So I had Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night to myself in my house alone, because I was the youngest of 6. Everybody was gone. So guess what I did?
No idea.
What do you think?
Parties?
Yeah, I've had a party. So initially we tell my buddies, and we all played sports. So the objective was to have a quiet party so my neighbors wouldn't dime me out. And sure enough, they would tell other people like us that had the party, and pretty soon there was 200 people at my house. So we had to have the police come to get people out. Word spreads fast, all right, amongst like-minded people. So your ideal client in your community, you could become known for something very quickly. If someone's known, like if you see a good restaurant and they're known for having amazing pasta, like you have great pasta and you specialize in pasta, now pretty soon people will tell others about your pasta. And that's what you want to become known for in your client space is what that solution is for that ideal crowd. And you want something that will light you up. You don't want something. You want something that you ever see a waiter, like you've been to eat with me enough times when I like ask somebody about what they're known for. If the waiter lights up, his physiology lights up. He gets enthusiastic. He gets certain. There's a French guy down here in Hollywood, and I don't like French food, but he's so certain that I'll like his food. I keep trying new dishes. He tried to pass a clam on to me. Not a clam. What's the other thing?
Oyster?
No, worse. It's the thing that slimes around.
Oh,
snail.
snails.
Yeah. And he almost talked me into it because he was so enthusiastic. Like my sauce, these snails are. I was like, I don't like snails.
Yeah.
I don't want a snail. But he was close.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, lights it up. So when you have that ideal client, you got to use the Sam Walton process to start to identify who that client is. You want to stroll the aisles of that market. So if you want to work with doctors, right? You want to be around doctors. You want to stroll the aisles and, go to their groups, start to read their magazines, start to become forensically aware of what they're doing and what articles are popular amongst the doctors. If it's a doctor, it's just one market, but you want to just like Sam Walton would go to other countries and he'd stroll the aisles of other department stores to get ideas. So it starts to get ideas and percolates that. Now, of course, last take action tip was on purpose. So your purpose kind of will direct you to your ideal client because there's a reason you've identified, what the world needs, what you're good at, what you can make money at, and what drives your economic engine and drives your capabilities. So you kind of have an idea probably of what that actual market is. If you can have, I always just say, if you could clone a client, who would it be? And that becomes what marketers would call the avatar. The ideal client. There's a lot of different. I don't know where the word came from. I mean, I think avatar. I think about the cartoon. Yeah. But that avatar was the perfect person. I think that's kind of what the word means. And then once you have that avatar, you got to go through the process of building what I call Frankenstein's Monster. Do you ever see Frankenstein?
Yeah.
What? Do you remember the movie?
Yeah, he built him from all the different pieces of a person.
He built it from the good pieces. He was trying to build the perfect person. And of course, he ended up being a monster because you couldn't do it. But that Frankenstein's monster on paper was a good idea. The best brain, the best body, the most handsome, the fastest. And, he put this monster together. But you can do that with a real person kind of on paper. Like, what does your ideal client do? What kind of family life do they have? How do they socialize? How do they interact? What's their interpersonal social style? Right? You can go through this whole thing because you know who you like to hang out with because that's who you hang out with. If you don't like to hang out with people, what do?
Nothing.
Yeah, you bounce them. And you want to get that, in your mind's eye, a picture of what that market is and who that person is, and then you want to profile that person to the action and find the actual person that is your ideal client. So my ideal client right now is a financial advisor who's married, who's plus or minus 5 years my age, who wants to transform. He's got a level of income that makes him very capable to pay me well enough that I can solve a very big problem for him. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's a guy, right? Because most financial advisors are men at this point. But I do work with some women. But the idea is to have that message like you're talking to that ideal client, and to do it offline first, because a lot of people want to do things online. They want to go directly into online. They want to test something, and they go to market with something they're not sure that works because they haven't tested it. So the process of building your Frankenstein's monster is find out who that person is, all right? and then forensically study them and think about that. And if you could clone them and have 300 of them, that's what you want to do. All right, and you want to do it organic first. A lot of people want to go directly online. And once you have that person, go to their social media, see what they're liking, see what they're sharing, see what groups they're in, see what periodicals they're subscribing to, see what articles they're reading, see what movies they like, and then it'll start to have a basis for building what I call your first list. So a take action tip is to have an ideal client by industry, have that ideal client identified as a person that you know, model that person's tendencies, and then you're going to start building your list of that person. So typically from like the house party, that person will breed others like that person. And then once that's done, this isn't very sexy either. I would make a list of 100. I'd find 100 people that fit that profile. You may not know 100 people, but you can easily build a list now. With LinkedIn, you can do a LinkedIn Boolean search. If you don't know what it is, it's called a Boolean search on LinkedIn by profession, and it'll give you a list of all the local people that have that title. I think it's title : profession. In LinkedIn, it's called a Boolean search, and you can start to get a list of people. And your ideal clients knows other ideal clients. You can start to build that list and work the networking process, and then get to the process and the point in time when you can survey them. The most important part of this whole exercise is the actual surveying. It's like the what Tupperware used to do with house parties. Like they used to get a bunch of people around that were housewives, and they'd talk about what they needed, and the Tupperware person would bring all the things they need to the party. And this is not so different with your ideal client. And then you just start to become known, and you build your skills at solving that pain that exact audience has. Because when you survey your ideal client, and I'll close with this. This is probably the most important part. It's a question, and I call this question the barometer question, because here in Miami, every day at 3 o'clock in hurricane season, the bad weather comes in. It gets dark and gloomy, and the barometer, which is right here, I have actual barometer because I use it as a prop. The barometer measures pressure. So pressure goes down when the weather's bad, and it goes back up to fair when the weather's good. So I ask people in the continuum of good and bad weather in their lives, I ask them this question live all the time because it's going to get a very good, very high, powerful answer. Is in the continuum of good and bad weather. One is Hurricane Dorian, which we had last year, and 10 is clear skies in San Diego. Where do you find yourself now? And they're gonna mark their own place. Sometimes they're not going to tell you the right answer, but they're going to mark their own place. And then I ask them this simple question: what's the one problem that you live with on a daily basis or intermittently that if it went away and no longer existed would make your life more close to a 10? And they're going to give you an answer. They're either going to give the answer the actual problem, or they're going to give you the answer of what I call story of the problem. All right? So if somebody's broke, it's like, I don't have any money. Like, that's not the problem. That's the story of the problem. Why don't you have any money? All right? It'll come down to a real answer. And that's a basis to start looking at. That one answer across 10 ideal clients that you survey will be the basis of a product that you can build to build a very large and very profitable business, solving that one problem, particularly if it keeps coming up. So for me, I was asking financial advisors what their problem was just recently. And a lot of them right now are stuck at home because they're used to building businesses out kissing babies and shaking hands. Like, they're not doing that right now. They're stuck at home, so they needed a way to meet people and do business online and get their practice back to capacity. So I built a product that did that, and it's doing tremendously well. And when I talk to people live or in emails or in my ads, I say, if you're stuck at home and you can't get new clients, we have a simple way to get you targeted introductions. And that was the basis of a product. So this segment is so important in business, the research, that a lot of people step over it and think they know what the problem is. They don't. And you got to find out. Hope this helps.